Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Royal Ramble podcast. I'm your host, Zach Stevens, and we are reviewing the SmackDown Live episode from May 30th, 2017, out of Atlanta, Georgia. Overall, man, really good episode tonight, I feel. I think they did a decent job of building up towards the matches that we're going to have at Money in the Bank. Obviously, there was some news revealed tonight that we'll talk about a little bit later that's pretty exciting. But yeah, overall, I think the episode of SmackDown was far better than last night's episode of Raw, given that whole Alexa Bliss cringeworthy segment that just kind of ruined the entire episode of Raw for everybody, essentially. So yeah, man, we start out tonight. We got promos from all 5 women that are competing in that elimination match tonight. Charlotte comes out. It's a video promo. She says that she is genetically superior and that's why she will win. Then Carmella has her promo and says that she has so much class, you could call her a teacher because she's going to be schooling her opponents tonight. Natalie comes out, or Natty, whatever you want to call her. She says the same standard shit. She's the best there was, the best there ever will be, blah, blah, blah. Becky Lynch comes out. She says that she's the Fighting Irish, but she does not need the luck of the Irish in order to win tonight. And then Tamina comes on, as if everyone forgot that she was in the match to begin with, and she says that it is her time, and she will become the number 1 contender. I thought these were decent. They kind of get some, momentum going for this match, even though it really didn't need it. I was kind of already excited for this match anyway. But yeah, I think he did a good job of kind of getting people's attention. So then we head to the ring for the first actual segment of the night. Kevin Owens is in the ring. He's doing the highlight reel gimmick again, alluding to that Chris Jericho, Kevin Owens feud that is inevitably going to come back at some point. He says that Jericho has invented the Money in the Bank ladder match, but Jericho never won it. We get AJ Styles chants, and then KO says that he will do what Chris Jericho never could, as he points up to the Money in the Bank briefcase hanging above him, saying that he will win the Money in the Bank, unlike Chris Jericho ever could. He says that he will not only be the face of America, but he will be the face of the entire WWE. Kevin finally introduces his guest for tonight for the highlight reel, and it is Shinsuke Nakamura, surprisingly. Again, he's using that stupid artist known as line that no one seems to like. And you know what, it reminded me of something that happened when AJ Styles was first initially brought to the roster. They were calling him the Bulldog, or they were calling him the Pit Bull, something like that, and eventually they dropped it. I'm really, really hoping that is something that they do with this whole artist known as gimmick or tagline that they're giving to Shinsuke, just mainly because he doesn't need that, and obviously AJ Styles doesn't either, and eventually they did drop that whole Pit Bull, Bulldog name or tag name that they were trying to give to him. So I'm hoping that is eventually what will happen with this whole artist known as line. Anyway, as Shinsuke is coming out, we actually hear a pyro go off during his entrance for the first time, but I didn't actually see any actual fireworks. Very weird. It was obviously in, synchronization with his music, so it was intended to happen. As a matter of fact, it happens twice, once as he's walking to the ring, and then once when he's in the ring, but we don't see any actual sparks or anything. We just hear the loud bang from the pyro, so not really sure what happened there. I don't know if he's actually going to get some pyro, but either way, it happened, and it was very strange. Kevin Owens says that's enough of the stupid dancing, and this is his show. He says that people want to know why Shinsuke is here and what his future holds, but he tells Shinsuke that the last person to act like a rock star was sent off to an early retirement, obviously referring to Chris Jericho. Then Shinsuke comes out and says, Kevin Owens, and then right as he's about to start talking, of course, Baron Corbin's music hits. Corbin comes out and he says that no one cares what Shinsuke has to say. He brings with him a highlight reel and says that let's see a clip of a real rock star. And they show highlights of the beatdown on Sami Zayn from last week that Baron Corbin gave to him. Then Kevin Owens says, did you really just interrupt my show to show us a clip of you beating up Sami Zayn? I've been beating up Sami Zayn for 15 years. The crowd obviously starts chanting and cheering. And Kevin Owens tells Corbin to get the hell out of here. Corbin calls KO Cartman again, as they did last week. and he says he will do what he does best and produce highlights. Shinsuke finally does get some promo time. He says that they are all very forgetful. He says that Chris Jericho isn't the best rock star that Kevin Owens has been in the ring with, and reminds KO that Shinsuke pinned him last week, obviously referring to last week's SmackDown. Shinsuke then turns his attention to Baron Corbin, and he says Corbin forgot to mention that this was the second time that Sami Zayn had beaten, also referring to last week in their match at Backlash, obviously. Corbin has apparently had enough. He gets into the ring with both KO and Corbin, and they both attack Shinsuke. It's a 2-on-1 beatdown until Sami Zayn comes from the crowd out of nowhere. He starts beating down Corbin and KO, and they eventually roll to the outside of the ring. Sami Zayn grabs a microphone. He tells Corbin the fight between them is not finished yet. He turns to KO and says the fight between Kevin and I is never over. Then he says there's no reason we don't have a 2v2 tag match right now. So obviously setting up for a 2v2 tag match between some of the guys in that Money in the Bank match. Obviously, I thought Shinsuke's promo was probably the most that they've actually given him to date, the most, words that he's had to say live in front of an audience. It wasn't perfect. He's obviously still working through the whole language barrier and whatnot. I don't believe he had the mouth guard in, so that is an improvement. However, one thing to note about this episode of SmackDown is that it was somewhat similar to the episode of Raw that we got as far as how they set up the matches and how everything kind of laid out. Obviously, during Raw, we started out with Miz TV and him getting interrupted by Dean Ambrose and the Hardy Boys and them all having a 3v3 tag match. Well, similarly, we had the same thing happen here. We had Shinsuke get interrupted by Corbin, and then Sami Zayn comes in, and then we lead to a 2v2 tag match between guys that are going to be in that Money in the Bank match. So, somewhat similar to the way they started Raw. That's good or bad. It's hard to say, really, but overall, I think it was a decent start to SmackDown. So obviously we head into our first match. It's that 2v2 tag match between Sami Zayn and Shinsuke, obviously going against Corbin and KO. One thing to note is that whole stretcher angle that they did last week with the beatdown from Corbin, that obviously didn't faze Sami too much because he's already back in the ring and fully healed. So anyway, it starts with Shinsuke. He's locked up with Corbin, and those two go at it for a while. I thought that this match really got Nakamura over more than we have seen to date on the main roster. I think his past two matches, he didn't get to really showcase a lot of his offense. He was kind of held back. There was a lot of the times where he was held down and just getting beat up on by whoever he was going against. But this match in particular, he really got a lot of offense going, a lot of brutal knee strikes, a lot of brutal kicks. So he looked very good, and his personality really came out, and it worked with this crowd. He was super over in this match and overall for the night. Eventually, Shinsuke hits Corbin with a series of knees in the corner. He tags in Sami, and then Corbin tags in as well, and now we have KO versus Sami, as we always do. Sami gets his offense going when KO rolls out of the ring and runs away from him in typical heel fashion, trying to stay away from Sami before he can do anything else. And then as Sami is entering back into the ring, Kevin Owens takes advantage of it and starts beating him down. He eventually tags in Corbin, and now Corbin is in control of Sami. Sami tries to outmuscle Corbin until Kevin Owens kicks Sami from behind, and then the 2-on-1 beatdown ensues. There was a really cool spot here where Corbin has Sami on the top ropes, and Sami kind of goes for this tornado DDT from the top rope, but Corbin uses his strength and catches him right in the middle of it and prevents him from hitting the ground, and then he counters it and turns it into this beautiful power slam. Thought that was a really cool visual and kind of shows how big of a beast Baron Corbin can be. We eventually head to commercial. We come back from break, and Kevin Owens is now in control of Sami until he hits the Blue Thunder Bomb on KO. Sami is working towards that hot tag to Shinsuke. Corbin finally realizes it and runs from the outside of the ring and knocks Shinsuke off of the turnbuckle. Sami tries to go for a quick roll-up on Corbin and gets dangerously close to getting another win on Corbin, just like they have been. They've been teasing through the past matches where Sami pinned Corbin, I think, in like 26 seconds last week. So anytime you see Sami get a roll-up on Corbin, everyone's like, oh shit, is it going to happen again? It was obviously a nice tease here, considering how, Sami has been beating him as of late. Corbin then hits a spine buster. He goes for a pin. Sammy kicks out in 2. Corbin continues to beat down on Sammy until he reverses it and hits him with a clothesline. He again sets up for the hot tag to Shinsuke, and this time he actually gets it. The crowd goes wild. One thing to note here from last week, whenever AJ and Shinsuke were teaming up, whenever they were building towards that hot tag from AJ to Shinsuke, the crowd really didn't seem very excited for it. But this week, they definitely did. So props to Atlanta, Georgia for being involved and, really getting behind Shinsuke here. Shinsuke comes in. He unleashes a flurry of knee strikes and kicks to KO, looking extremely strong here. Much better than last week's match, like I said. Shinsuke goes for a pin, but KO kicks out in 2. We get some Nakamura chants, so the crowd is really into it. Corbin then interrupts another pin from Shinsuke by jumping in the ring and knocking Shinsuke off of KO. And then Sammy comes in and hits Corbin. Sammy throws KO into Corbin, and Baron obviously isn't happy. He starts yelling at KO, and KO turns his back on Corbin, and then Corbin turns him around and punches him right in the face. Sammy then hits a clothesline to Corbin, throws him outside of the ring. And Kevin Owens is still kind of dazed from that punch from Baron Corbin. Meanwhile, Shinsuke is in the corner, revving up for the Kinshasa, and everyone starts building up. They're getting excited, and then boom, Shinsuke hits the knee to the face, hits the Kinshasa, and it's just a fantastic sell by Kevin Owens, man. Each time he's eaten the Kinshasa, it has looked so great. He takes it right in the face and just hits the ground. His entire body goes limp, and it looks like he is just dead. I really love how much Kevin Owens is really helping put over that move is something devastating, and he makes it look like $1 million. So props to both of these guys. Obviously, Nakamura gets the pin 1, 2, 3 after the Kinshasa, and they win in about 8 minutes. Overall, I really, really liked this match. I thought it was really cool to see Sammy and Shinsuke pairing up. We're getting a lot of these really awesome, legendary pairings now that Shinsuke is here. We got AJ, all these really awesome indie guys that we thought never in a million years we would see on WWE television. So very, very cool. I thought, like I said, they really showcased Shinsuke's offense a lot here, much better than they did in the Backlash match, in his debut match, and the match that he had recently on last episode of SmackDown. So I thought he looked really strong, and I think this is really what Nakamura needs. He needs to look strong. I know I said before that, maybe even give him some jobber matches just to really show how strong he is. But overall, I thought he looked really great here, and Kevin Owens, again, sold that Kinshasa perfectly. So next up in the ring, we have some promos from the Usos, complete with their Day 1 is H sweaters. They apparently have a message for Breezango. So they come out to the ring and they say that everyone in the crowd is looking salty because they remain the tag team champions. They say that, hey, they thought that American Alpha was going to beat us? Nope. They thought Breezango was going to beat us? Again, nope. Then in typical WWE heel fashion, they drop a line relating to a sport far more popular than wrestling by saying, just like they thought the Atlanta Falcons would beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl? Nope. So obviously they're in Atlanta, Georgia. They're going to poke fun at that a little bit, especially when you're the heel. It's always a popular thing to do to talk about the local sports team. But yeah, really good promo from the Usos so far, man. Their heel transformation has been amazing. There's a lot of times when everyone's like, oh, this guy's kind of dead in the water. They should turn him heel. Kind of like with Roman Reigns, right? Everyone wants him to turn heel, but they just don't do it. That's kind of how I felt about the Usos for a while, back when they were doing the, painted faces and they were the babyface tag team. They were not very exciting. They were getting boos by just being babyfaces. And then WWE Creative decided to turn them into a heel. And I think this has been the best that we've ever seen the Usos, to be quite honest with you. They have a lot more charisma in this role. I feel like they are kind of going with the flow more. They aren't just coming out and reading off a script. They're coming up with their own stuff. Very reminiscent of almost how the New Day started, the New Day wasn't very popular. They went heel, and then everyone started to love them. And that's kind of what I'm getting from the Usos here. The Usos are really, embracing this heel role. They look badass. They come out and they deliver these great promos. And I think just overall, the Usos have really turned it around as far as gaining my interest as a fan. Anyway, they go on to say that no one goes as hard as them in the WWE. They talk about how great of a tag team they are. And then we hear a familiar voice. We hear, "Nah-uh," screams the voice, and it is Big E and the New Day. They are officially back. Now, we had heard rumors that there was going to be this match between the Usos and the New Day for a while now. Originally, we thought that it was going to be pushed back because of the big push that Breezango is essentially getting. And the New Day was getting a tad stale on Raw, especially after they lost the belts. They were kind of just, they were the hosts of WrestleMania. They were doing that whole ice cream gimmick thing, and it was good for them to be off TV for a little bit. I know it was due to Kofi's injury and whatnot, but I think it was good for them. And now when they come back, they feel fresh, and I'm excited to really see where this feud goes. So eventually, big reaction for the New Day here. They come into the ring, and Xavier Woods grabs the mic and says the boys are back. They are in Atlanta, Georgia, which is the hometown of Xavier Woods. The Usos then interrupt Kofi when he starts talking, and they say that they must have gotten lost on the yellow brick road, referring to their entrance. They tell the New Day that they have the tag division on lock, and they welcome them to the Uso Penitentiary. Big E then says they know what goes on in a penitentiary, but that is besides the point. He says that they like the tag team belts, and they wants them. The Usos tell the New Day to open their eyes. They run this show, and they should leave before they take these old unicorns out back, Old Yeller style. And then New Day is obviously reacting like, whoa, that's pretty harsh, essentially saying that they're going to go out back and shoot him. But obviously it fits right into the Usos' kind of role here. Xavier then calls them cute for thinking that they run the show. He says they know who actually runs the show, obviously referring to Shane McMahon. And then Xavier says they have some very special opponents at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, but who could it be? Obviously we get those who chants from the crowd, and spoiler alert, it is the New Day. So we are officially going to have New Day versus the Usos at Money in the Bank. Like I said, this was a rumored match for a while now. I am a little sad that Breezango isn't getting another shot at the title. I don't think that it's necessarily time to take the belts off of the Usos quite yet. And at this point in the show, I was kind of worried that Breezango and the Fashion Files, they may not even be on this show at all because of the New Day coming back and whatnot. But later in the show, obviously, I was proved wrong, but it did make me a little worried, just mainly because I'm really liking where Breezango is at. I like the Fashion Files, despite it being somewhat cheesy, but I think it's good for the New Day to come back and have a hot match with the Usos to kind of get their momentum back. And like I said, man, the Usos are on fire right now, so this match is probably going to be pretty good. So then we finally get a tease for tonight's main event. It's going to be AJ versus Dolph. Again, like I said, very similar to the same way that Raw carried out, right? We have AJ versus Dolph in the main event. We had Seth versus Roman in the main event. Both of these guys are both going to be in those 5-way elimination matches. So taking guys from the main event of our pay-per-view and mixing them up, matching them up in different ways to get through the week. I really hope that they don't overdo this on SmackDown. I hope they can do some new pairings here so that we don't get tired of seeing these guys fight. That is one problem that I usually have with WWE booking, is that they typically will make a main event for the pay-per-view, and then we'll see those guys fight each other 3 or 4 times throughout the week in different variations before we finally get to the pay-per-view, and then by then we feel like we've seen it all. So I'm hoping that they kind of steer away from that a little bit. Tonight's show was okay. It's okay to do it one night or 2 nights, but let's chill out on that for a little bit. So eventually we get to, we're going to have a Punjabi celebration highlight package for Jinder Mahal. I thought this was really cool. I thought this was really well done, despite me not really liking the actual celebration that they had. I thought that was a little bit awkward, a little bit cringy, but the way that they did this was a bunch of highlight packages kind of showing how Jinder has gotten to this point. They show him beating up Randy Orton. They show him with the celebration, obviously, on SmackDown. Then they show clips from India of people celebrating in India of, just to kind of show how impactful this is on a worldwide basis, not just from America. This is a big deal in India as they have their champion with the belt, or with their guy with the belt, I should say. However, at this point, I didn't really think that we were going to have Jinder at all on this episode, which did make me a little worried, right? On both episodes, SmackDown and Raw, we aren't seeing the main belt on each episode. The Universal title is off in some farmland with Brock Lesnar. God knows what he's doing with that. And then Jinder isn't here. So it's very strange to not have your champion on every episode. You think that the main belt, the one that everyone is, vying for, everyone wants to get, would be on each episode. But unfortunately, he was not actually there in person. But we do have an appearance from Jinder later on in the episode. Anyway, we get a new Fashion Files, which, like I said, I was worried that Breezango may not have any screen time today, but obviously I was proven wrong. We have a new Fashion Files. This time it was done in like a black and white noir fashion. Very cool. Fandango is dressed up as a detective. He's in a trench coat, and he's doing some inner dialogue with himself, saying that they let the Uggos slip right through their fingers, and he's upset that they lost. But then he stumbles upon the Fashion Files, the Fashion Police office, and it has been completely destroyed. He walks in there, he's picking up all the stuff off the ground, and he sees a shadow of a woman. However, that shadow of the woman turns out to be Breezango dressed up as a woman like he has been doing lately. He sees Breezango, who, like I said, is still in a dress, and they do a funny gag where they're both doing that inner dialogue, but they can both hear each other. So Fandango is thinking one thing in his mind, and then Breezango is responding to it, but no words are actually spoken. It's all done through their through their minds, essentially. I thought it was pretty funny. They move past that, and then they turn around and they find a bottle of cologne. They say they find a clue, and it's a bottle of cologne, which obviously they're alluding to the colognes, right? Fandango then takes the cologne, sprays it on his hand, and starts licking it, and he starts describing each chemical in the cologne. Very funny. He's done this before. I think he was tasting face paint, I think it was. He was like, oh, it's lead-based. Again, same kind of thing here with the cologne. Tyler Breeze then says they know what their next case is, and they are getting on it right away. I did like this Fashion Files. However, I will say it's probably the weakest one to date. But however, I still love this gimmick, and I really want to see more from these guys, man. I think that I know they're kind of doing the comedy thing, but I think it's welcomed on this show, especially. Instead of just giving us some trash throwaway match, let's get a match that makes people laugh or just gets people interested. And before you know it, people are going to go from laughing to being extremely behind these guys if they aren't already. I honestly think they'll go from comedy wrestling to being the top tier guys eventually. So overall, I'm glad to see that they aren't gone just because the New Day is back, and I hope that they continue with this push. Next up, we get a huge match here. We're going to get that 5-way elimination match for the number 1 contender spot for the women's title. Right off the bat, I'm thinking, man, why isn't this the main event? This absolutely should be the main event. And then as I started thinking that, I was thinking, okay, there must be something fishy here. Otherwise, this would have been the main event, not Dolph versus AJ. Even though we are in AJ's home state. Anyway, I'm never going to complain about AJ being in the main event, obviously, but with a match as big as this one, as it was built up to be, it probably should have been the main event, but obviously we'll get to why it was not. Charlotte comes out first, then we have Carmella, introduced by James Ellsworth, who calls the crowd dirty, undeserving, southern fried chicken giblets. I'm just going to give you a nice awkward silence for that one, James. There's one thing that I did want to note here. James Ellsworth, he attracts a lot of heat, right? There was a point where he was kind of a babyface at first, but now people just want him off their television. And I understand that they put James with Carmella in order to kind of transfer some of that heat from Ellsworth onto Carmella. However, I don't think it's really working. When James is out there and he's introducing her, there's a lot of boos and there's a lot of people booing and saying they don't like James Ellsworth. But when Carmella comes out, the transfer of heat isn't working. When she comes out, it just kind of goes dead silent, and that is the worst thing you could do. Getting any type of reaction is good, but when you're getting no reaction at all, that's when things are bad. I understand, Carmella, hasn't really been able to find her place. I think she is doing better now that she's with Ellsworth, but I don't think that the plans from WWE Creative are really working here as far as trying to get the heat over to Carmella from James Ellsworth. Because, like I said, man, it just goes dead silent when she comes out there. Eventually, the rest of the women come out, and then we finally well, we don't start the match, but we start a brawl. As soon as Becky gets into the ring, all the women get in each other's faces, and a brawl between all 5 of them takes place. Like I said, the bell actually never rings, so the match never officially starts, but Natalya starts beating down Charlotte, Charlotte starts beating down Natalya, and vice versa. Tamina then gets involved. It's her versus Charlotte for a little bit. Tamina hits her with a Samoan drop. Meanwhile, on the outside of the ring, Carmella and Becky are brawling, and Becky throws Carmella near the timekeeper's area, throws her over the barricade. Then Tamina finally starts to do something of worth for the first time in her career and starts taking apart the announcer's table. And I'm thinking, man, this is getting intense. We're about to see a woman go through a table. The match hadn't even started yet. Like, I'm getting excited. The crowd's getting hyped. Let's go. So she, removes all the stuff from the table like you do, the monitors, the big wooden SmackDown logo thing. However, Charlotte comes from behind and stops her and attacks Tamina and Natalya. The match is starting really hot, like I said, really loving it. Hasn't even started yet. Charlotte goes to the top rope, setting up for the moonsault, my favorite move from Charlotte, and she hits both Natty and Tamina with it. Absolutely beautiful. Love this move. Love when she does it. I've got to see it live. It's incredible. Anytime she does it, it's big time stuff. Natalya then gets on Charlotte. They tease the table spot again, but then Charlotte throws Natty into the steel steps, and she hits the steps hard as shit. There wasn't a lot of room between her and the steps, and Charlotte just threw her into it, and she hit hard, man. Go back and watch that. That was pretty vicious. Then Charlotte grabs Natty from her being indisposed from those tables. She picks her up, puts her on her shoulders, and power bombs Natty through that table. So we did get that table spot eventually that they were teasing. I was kind of thinking that they were going to save that for Sunday, or well, not Sunday, but when Money in the Bank happens on June 18th. But I'm glad that we got it. We then get holy shit chants, obviously, because that table shot and that stair shot was fucking brutal looking, so props to Natty for taking both of those. All of a sudden, all the women are on the ground, indisposed at this point. All of a sudden, Shane's music hits. He comes to the ring. All these women are kind of laying out and about, just, completely dead from all the abuse they've just taken. Meanwhile, Shane O'Mac is doing this Shane O'Mac shuffle in the middle of the ring. I mean, obviously this is fake. I mean, it's, whatever. But it's kind of unprofessional, right? All these women are laying out on the ground and he's in the middle of the ring dancing. It's just kind of weird. Not a big deal, just kind of weird. Anyway, he looks around, he starts calling each woman by their name, and as he's doing it, he's going, Tamina, Natalya, Charlotte, Carmella. It's almost like he forgot Carmella's name, just like everyone else that watches wrestling. They always forget Carmella. Eventually, Shane says, since you guys are so focused on getting this title, let's make history. And obviously, this had been rumored for a while now. But he eventually says, let's make history and let's have the first ever women's Money in the Bank ladder match at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view. I am so excited to see this. This is something that I've wanted to see for a very long time. I think they should have done it last year, to be quite honest with you. Now, there aren't a whole lot of women on the SmackDown side, which makes me think that, hey, I think Lana might be in this. I think Lana might be a surprise entrant into this, especially because in this match in particular, she won't have to showcase a whole lot. It could be a good starting point for her. And obviously, there was no tease for Lana tonight, no coming soon tease for Lana at all tonight. So they might be trying to hide that a little bit and make us think that, hey, this could be a surprise entrant. This could be something that people get excited about. And by the way, I am extremely excited to see Lana in the ring. I know we've only seen her once, and it was at that WrestleMania a few years ago. But, from that match, I liked what I saw. And, I think Lana could be pretty good. Obviously, she's extremely good in the role that she has with Rusev, but if they are kind of splitting them apart, I think it's the right move to try and get Lana in the ring because, man, she has some devastating looking kicks, and her legs are so long that anytime she hits one, it looks badass. So I'm excited to see that. So overall, man, I'm super excited that we are going to get a women's Money in the Bank ladder match. The only thing I'm thinking of is what color is their briefcase going to be? Is it going to be blue? Are they going to do pink? What are they going to do with that? I know it's kind of a stupid thing to even think about, but, I'm excited for this match, period, man, and I really want to see who's going to win it. My guess, I don't really know. I don't know who is going to win this. to be quite honest with you, they've really been pushing Carmella a lot lately as this heel. They've given her a lot more. Even though she's not really getting much heat, she's not getting much of a reaction, I could see her potentially taking this and seeing her and Ellsworth on our TV every week teasing this cash in. So, I don't know. We'll see. But my initial thoughts is I think Lana might be in this match, and I'm super excited to see a women's Money in the Bank ladder match. All right, moving on. The next match, we have Breezango versus the Clones. So we're taking no time. They didn't have to do much of an investigation on this. They immediately figured out it was the Clones, and we're heading in to the ring. The Clones don't get an entrance, but Breezango does. So I think that's one telling element that says, hey, man, these guys are still important to us from a creative standpoint. Anytime you get an entrance and your opponent doesn't, you're doing something right. So as long as your entrance isn't being cut, you're still good. I'm not going to go into a full in-depth review of this match in particular. It was a comedy match. At one point, Tyler Breeze gets to start. He gets hit, and someone in the crowd yells, "How dare you hit a woman?" Because he's still dressed up as a woman. So I thought that was pretty funny. Eventually, Breezango and Fandango pull out their squirt guns, and they use those to their advantage in the match, spraying the Clones in the face and eventually getting their offense going. At one point, Tyler makes a costume change. He goes under the ring and puts on his janitor outfit. I still think this is a nod to Kenny Omega and his cleaner gimmick, because they started calling him the janitor, and he has a mop instead of a broom like Kenny Omega. However, he did not get to use the mop in this match. There was a little bit of a power struggle between Fandango and one of the Clones trying to get the mop out of his hands. And as he's doing that, Tyler Breeze comes from behind, hits him with a move, and they pin him in 3. Not really a great match, but like I said, I do appreciate how they're, infusing a comedy match or a comedy break here, and to really kind of make things not feel so repetitive and boring, kind of get our attention back as viewers. And overall, man, I just really like Breezango, and I hope that they get to keep pushing them. Next up, we get an interview with AJ Styles and Renee. This was a little bit awkward. AJ stumbled over his words a little bit, but AJ says that great teams play really good teams to show how good they are and to build up momentum. He says that he is going to get that briefcase at Money in the Bank until Dolph Ziggler interrupts him mid-sentence. This is where things get a little bit awkward. Some of the writing here was obviously given to them specifically to read. Super awkward, and I hate when they do this shit. But anyway, Dolph says that AJ may have built this house, but Dolph is the one who laid down the foundation. He also says that he is the only one in this match who has won it before, and he claims that he will win it again. Dolph then says to AJ, "You want to go right now, Age? You want to do this now, P1?" Super cringy. AJ then rips his shirt off and says, "Let's go. That's how we do it in the ATL." Then Dolph leaves, and he says he will see him out there, kid. This little exchange right here was super awkward, super cringy. Obviously not as bad as Alexa Bliss and Bayley, but it was a weak-ass attempt to get us excited for this somewhat meaningless match that we're going to have in the main event tonight. But obviously, one thing to keep in mind here is that AJ is in his home state, his hometown, and you know what they like to do with hometown people when they wrestle in front of their hometown crowd. So we'll see what happens. Next up, Randy Orton finally is going to respond about his loss to Jinder. He comes into the ring, he talks about how he's beaten up people like Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. He talks about how his dad was in the main event of the first ever WrestleMania. He mentions his grandfather, who was from the silent era, and they didn't say much back then, but they got stuff done. He says that Jinder Mahal deserves an old-fashioned Orton family ass-kicking. He says he can't show his face back in his hometown unless he beats Jinder. He then says he's going to take a cue from his granddad and stop talking, because he is going to win at Money in the Bank and become a 14-time world champion, and that is when Jinder's music hits. However, we don't see Jinder in person. We get Jinder on the big screen. I guess he decided to Skype in from India or some shit. Jinder eventually says Orton is a typical American. He's going through his typical anti-American promo that he always does. We get some USA chants, and then the crowd is kind of dead. We have this super awkward long pause at the end of the promo from Jinder where the Singh brothers are clapping for him, and it felt like it was going on forever and ever and ever, and it was just super awkward. Then Orton just gets on the top rope, does his typical Randy Orton pose, and that was that. So overall, I think there's a lot of heat still behind Jinder, don't get me wrong. I think that he should have the belt right now. However, I think that we need to get Randy Orton out of the title picture. I think this should be their last match that they have. I think Jinder probably should retain, and I think we need to move Randy Orton out of this babyface role, get him off TV for a little bit, and let's turn him back heel, man, because babyface Randy Orton has been super, super boring, and I'm ready to see a change as far as that goes. But yeah, no actual Jinder on this show, so the champion is not on TV, just like he's not on TV with Raw. Alright, so we head into our main event. It's going to be AJ versus Dolph Ziggler. But first, we have this awkward tease between Sasha Banks and Rich Swann trying to promote 205 Live. Then we actually get a match announcement for next week, where we will have KO versus Shinsuke. Dolph comes out first. They show highlights from 2013 where Dolph wins the briefcase and cashes it in on Alberto Del Rio. AJ then comes out. Huge reaction for AJ. Obviously, he's from Georgia, so this is a hometown match. However, at this point in the show, I wrote it down in my notes here. I'm calling it now. He is going to lose this match clean. This is typical WWE booking. So, anytime you have a wrestler wrestling in their hometown, WWE does not let them win. So, I already off the bat was thinking, man, he's going to lose to Dolph Ziggler tonight. It's going to happen. So the match starts. We immediately have some AJ Styles chants. He is super over here. And honestly, he's super over wherever we go. AJ is the future right now. He is the one that made SmackDown interesting to watch. But anyway, we have a slow start. AJ's thrown into the pole and hits his ribs. He goes to the outside, and we head to commercial almost immediately. There's one thing about TV matches in particular where commercials really take you out of it. However, when you do it early in the match, I feel like, the latter part of it, I have enough to go off of and get invested with. It's when they have 2 or 3 commercials within one match that I completely lose interest and want to change the channel. So, kind of glad that they did this early so that we could get to it. But anyway, we come back. AJ's in control against Dolph. He's doing his typical AJ offense. Really good match, even though not much has really happened. AJ does a kip up and gets the crowd super hype. AJ just goes on this fury of offense, man. He's pulling everything out. He's hitting him with all the punches, all of his typical offense that he does. He hits Dolph with a series of strikes, and then he teases the Styles Clash, which this was a motif throughout the match here. He was constantly teasing the Styles Clash. Dolph then reverses it. He tries to go for a pin with his feet on the ropes, but the ref eventually catches him, so they nullify the pin. AJ grabs Dolph, hits a neck breaker. Dolph kicks out in 2. AJ picks up Ziggler after that and teases the Styles Clash again. But then Dolph again is able to wiggle his way out of the ropes and stop him. Wiggle his way to the ropes and stop him, I should say. It's pretty much been all AJ up to this point. Like I said, he's doing all of his offense. He's pretty much just destroying Dolph like he's a jobber. AJ then takes Dolph to the top ropes, and he teases a Styles Clash off of the top rope, which, my God, if we ever get to see that, holy shit, man, that is going to erupt any crowd that gets to see that. I'm not sure if we're going to see it at Money in the Bank. Usually they kind of do things like that, where they'll tease a big move, and it won't happen until the pay-per-view. But, man, whoever takes that Styles Clash off the top rope, holy shit, dude. Like, mad props to whoever it's going to be, whether it's Dolph or whoever it is, man. That is going to be super huge if they do it. Dolph eventually counters that. He obviously doesn't get the Styles Clash off the top rope. He slides under AJ, and he counters. He hits a DDT onto Styles. It is kind of sketchy looking, but it was a nice transition from the Famouser into the Styles Clash position again. Dolph is going for the Famouser. Styles takes him and turns it into the Styles Clash. And like I said, man, this is what the whole match kind of revolved around, was really teasing that Styles Clash, a bunch of counters, not getting off the big moves, but getting off the momentum building moves like he usually does. Again, Dolph breaks out of the Styles Clash again. Again, at this point, I'm thinking in my mind, man, AJ is definitely losing this match. For one, he is getting all of the offense, which typically means that Ziggler is going to pull out some sketchy victory. And number two, he's obviously in his hometown. And WWE, for whatever reason, does not want their hometown boys winning in the hometown. So, not sure what that's all about, man. But, AJ doesn't necessarily need this win. He's going to be over regardless. But I still think it's weird that they do this. Ziggler then hits AJ with a knee shot, and AJ gets him to the top rope. Dolph goes for a superplex, but AJ counters it again. AJ pulls off a beautiful transition into the calf crusher. And each time he does this, man, I'm always amazed. I don't know what it is, but he's just able to turn any move into that calf crusher, and it always looks so good, and it gets me so hyped. So each time he pulls it off, man, I'm always marking out. I'm always getting out of my chair going, oh, shit, that's awesome. Anyway, Ziggler eventually catches AJ. He hits the zigzag, the same move that he won the title with 5 years ago, but AJ kicks out of it. Then we head into the big finish here, which, I don't know, man. It was a little sketchy, but Ziggler goes for a super kick. AJ dodges it, of course, right? AJ then sets up for the phenomenal forearm. He's on the outside of the ring apron. But again, Ziggler counters it by punching the rope that he's standing on and knocks him off of it. And I think the idea here was that AJ falls on his nuts. I think that's what they were going for. But really what kind of happened was AJ kind of fell off to the side a little bit. He really didn't fall down like you typically see people do when they're doing that spot, the nut shot spot. So it looked a little sketchy because he kind of fall off to the side rather than directly onto the rope. AJ then falls into the ring. Ziggler drills him with a super kick. And 1, 2, 3, AJ loses clean, in quotations, to Ziggler. My thoughts, man, like I said, I knew it was coming. Hometown boys and girls aren't allowed to win in their hometown. And to be quite honest with you, this finish almost seemed a little rushed or something went wrong here. I don't know if it was entirely because of the nut shot. I don't know if AJ wasn't able to sell it properly or what. But even the crowd was like, whoa, that was the ending? Are you sure? Because it was dead silent. Everyone looked pretty confused. So, yeah, man, really weird ending, even though I kind of knew AJ was going to lose. And I think probably most of the people in the crowd probably should have expected that at this point if they are following the WWE product. But overall, man, I actually really like the match. I like how they were teasing the Styles Clash constantly, and Ziggler would find a way to counter it. Ziggler would do something offensively, and then AJ would find a way to counter it. So these two guys, man, they can really go at it. They are both really good in the ring. AJ is still a monster. Obviously, losing to Ziggler is not ever good, but he's always going to be a monster, man, and he is the future of the company despite being nearly 40 years old. Ziggler and him could put out a great match, man, and I think this was a good display by two of the guys that are going to be in that Money in the Bank match. So, yeah, that was the end of the show, man. Ziggler pins AJ clean, sort of. But yeah, overall, man, I really liked SmackDown tonight. It was much, much, much better than Raw. In the 2-hour format, I think it's just more digestible, I guess you could say. It's easier to watch having to only sit through 2 hours of it rather than 3 hours where, an entire hour of Raw is usually all filler bullshit that no one cares about, or super cringy segments. At least with SmackDown, they don't have to fill that extra hour, and they can fill it with stuff that is a little bit more meaningful and things that are actually, that actually interest their audience. Like I said at the beginning of the show, though, this was kind of a condensed, albeit much better version of the same booking that we saw last night on Raw. We had that giant 5-man match coming up from both brands, the ladder match on SmackDown, and the elimination match coming up this Sunday at Extreme Rules. And, we had the 3v3 impromptu tag match last night on Raw, and we had a 2v2 impromptu tag match on SmackDown tonight. We have a main event between two guys from the Fatal 5-Way, and again, the same thing that's happening on SmackDown. We have two guys from the ladder match that are in the main event going against each other. So, very similar booking, but they did it better on SmackDown. I think, like I said, the 2-hour version, the 2-hour format leads better for that sort of stuff. But it was eerily similar to how Raw kind of played out, minus all of the bullshit filler and, Bailey, this is your shitty life segment that we got. So yeah, overall, man, SmackDown was a much better show than Raw last night. It is my favorite show to watch. It's the one that I'm actually excited for each week. There weren't many cringy segments other than that kind of awkward exchange between Ziggler and AJ that we got. The New Day is back, so we had things of actual substance in this show. The New Day made their return, so we had a nice reveal there. Obviously, they're going to be going against the Usos, who are super hot right now. And to be fair, I think that the New Day and the Usos are probably going to be battling this thing out until SummerSlam, where there will probably be a title change at that point. I'm also extremely excited for that women's Money in the Bank ladder match. We had that also revealed tonight, which is also something of substance. And I think these are the things that really make SmackDown a little bit better than Raw, is that they actually gave us, breaking news here. They gave us something that is actually going to matter as far as storylines go. And like I said, man, that Money in the Bank ladder match between the women and the men, but mainly the women, is something that I've wanted to see for a long time, and I'm super glad that it's going to be happening, and I can't wait to see that match. I do think Lana is probably going to get involved here at some point. Maybe even, Naomi does need a match, because obviously she's not going to have a match on the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, because someone is going to be getting it, and she's not going to have a chance to cash in. So maybe Naomi will fight Lana. Who knows? Maybe it'll just be a singles match between those two. Not for the championship or anything, but they could just be, just a regular match. But definitely excited to see where they go with that stuff. Another thing I'm super happy about from this episode is that Breezango and the Fashion Files and all that stuff still got TV time. They're obviously still showing that they are important despite not, putting them in the title picture. They're giving them TV time, which is what they need, right? That's something that they weren't getting at all a couple months ago. So to have Breezango get more TV time and really help them get over and do more of this stuff, I think it's well deserved, and I'm really excited to see where they go with that tag team in time. I'm super excited for the men's Money in the Bank match as well. My prediction at this point is that Baron Corbin does win it. However, they mentioned something tonight during that AJ versus Ziggler match, and it got me very intrigued, and it got me more excited. Was thinking, what if AJ does win it? I think it would be super, super exciting, and it would get everyone hyped when we hear that theme song hit, and he's out there, he's about to take the belt from Jinder, or whoever has it at the time. I think that could be really intriguing, even though I don't necessarily think that AJ needs the Money in the Bank briefcase. I could see that being a good fit for him. I don't think Shinsuke is going to win it, and I don't think Kevin Owens is going to win it. I don't think Dolph Ziggler is going to win it either, but you never know with this company. So I think that leaves us Baron Corbin and AJ, and I do think Baron will probably end up taking it, but I would be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued by AJ also having it and having his chance to take back that title. So yeah, man, that was the episode of SmackDown. That is our review. I thought it was a good episode. A lot of reveals tonight, things that advance storylines, and I think it was well deserved. So, yeah, man, thank you for checking out this episode of the Royal Ramble podcast. Again, I'm Zach Stevens. We do have a Twitter. If you want to check out our Twitter, it is at @ramble_cast. We also have a YouTube page getting set up right now. It is youtube.com/Royal Ramble Radio. We're also working on a website to get our episodes posted there as well, and looking at other places to upload this podcast so it can be more readily available to anyone that wants to check it out. So, yeah, man, appreciate you listening. Thank you to everyone out there, and we will see you this Sunday. Well, we'll get the review for Extreme Rules done on Monday, so that's when that will be uploaded, but there will be a review for Extreme Rules this Sunday. Again, definitely excited for that, even though most of the matches on that card are not very exciting. I'm definitely hyped, though, for that main event, so that is the thing that we'll probably be talking about the most on that Extreme Rules pay-per-view review. So be on the lookout for that on Monday, and then, of course, Tuesday we'll have the Raw review, and then Wednesday we'll have our SmackDown review. So that is the show. Appreciate it. Thank you for listening to the Royal Ramble podcast. I'm your host, Zach Stevens, and I am out.